Family dinners at my parents' place always unfold the same way. My mother prepares far more food than anyone can finish. My father uncorks a bottle and insists it shouldn't go to waste. My sister shows up late and energetic, carrying whichever version of her life she wants everyone to admire at the time. That evening, she brought a man called Daniel. He stepped in just ahead of her, as if the house already belonged to him. His smile was confident, his handshake firm. He had the kind of presence that fills any silence before it can turn uncomfortable. It didn't take long for my parents to warm up to him. My mother laughed a little too quickly at things that weren't especially funny. Within minutes, my father was already asking about his career. My sister observed it all with quiet satisfaction. I arrived last. No one seemed to notice. By the time I took my seat, Daniel had already settled in and started joking around. At first, it seemed harmless. Light remarks about how quiet I was, paired with a quick grin as though inviting me to join in. When I didn't respond, he tried again. "So," he said, glancing at my sister, "is he always this serious? Or did I mess up already?" She laughed right away, not cruelly, just eagerly. The kind of laughter people give when they want someone to keep going. My father smiled into his glass. Daniel leaned back, clearly pleased with himself. I could sense where the evening was heading. People like him test boundaries early. They say something slightly sharp and watch for reactions. If no one objects, they push further. And he did. Another comment about my silence. Another joke about me being the mysterious sibling. My sister added that I had always been the odd one growing up. Laughter followed again. I wasn't embarrassed. At least not yet. It felt more like watching a performance where everyone had already decided my role. So, I kept eating. After the third round, my mother finally spoke, but not in the way I expected. She didn't ask him to stop. Instead, she looked at me and said, calmly but firmly, "Don't make things uncomfortable. Just relax." Around the table, there were small nods, as if the issue had been identified and resolved. That was the moment I understood. I had been assigned the role of tension. So I said nothing. Silence is often mistaken for weakness. That can be useful if you're willing to wait. The conversation shifted to safer topics. Travel plans, a cousin's wedding, my father complaining about traffic. Then Daniel brought up his job. He didn't mention it modestly. He said the company's name, with the expectation that it would be recognized. My father gave him exactly that. "Oh, I've heard of them," he said. Daniel smiled. "It's a demanding place," he added. "You need to be sharp to keep up." My sister looked at him the way people do when they've already decided someone impressive has entered their life. He described his position in broad strokes, technical terms mixed with vague authority. It sounded sophisticated, but didn't reveal much. Everyone listened. I recognized the company immediately. Not just the company, the specific department he claimed to be part of. For a moment, I wondered if I was mistaken. So I let him continue. Then I quietly took out my phone. No one noticed. The conversation was still centered around him. My father asked about long hours. My sister praised his ambition. I opened an old message thread. At the top was a name. Mark, the director of that exact department. We had worked together a couple of years earlier on a consulting project. Not closely, but enough to stay in occasional contact. Just last month, over coffee, he had complained about an applicant who had exaggerated their experience in that same team. I looked up at Daniel. He was explaining how selective the company had become. I asked my first question, calmly. "So, you're part of the infrastructure group?" He nodded right away. "Yeah, exactly. Under Mark's division." His confidence didn't waver. My sister glanced at me, slightly surprised that I had spoken at all. I scrolled once on my phone, then asked another question, something small, something only someone familiar with that structure would think to ask. Daniel paused. "Give me a second," he said, then answered anyway. He was wrong. It wasn't obvious to anyone else, but it was enough. I set my phone down beside my plate. "I know Mark," I said evenly. No smile. No raised voice. Daniel blinked. The atmosphere shifted. "We worked together a while back," I continued. "We still talk now and then." His posture changed, subtly but noticeably. My sister caught it. Her expression tightened. He cleared his throat. Well, it's a big company, he said. Lots of different teams. Of course, I replied calmly. I didn't accuse him. I didn't expose him directly. I simply asked another precise question, one more detail about the team. This time, he hesitated longer. My father looked back and forth between us. The mood at the table had changed into something unfamiliar. Daniel tried to explain, but the explanation grew tangled. His titles shifted. His responsibilities became unclear. The confidence that had carried him through the evening quietly slipped away. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. After a moment, I tapped my phone and angled it slightly toward myself again. I could message him, I said lightly. Just to say hello. Daniel stopped speaking. Across the table, my sister stared at him, waiting. The silence now lasted longer than any of his earlier jokes. I picked up my fork again. That's not necessary, Daniel said finally, his voice softer. Different divisions. Right, I said. No one laughed. Dinner went on, but slowly. Daniel spoke less. My sister watched him more closely. My parents focused on their plates. There was no apology. I hadn't expected one. When the meal ended, my mother began clearing the dishes. As I stood to leave, I noticed something small but telling. No one asked me to relax. No one joked about me being quiet. And Daniel didn't look at me again.